Hello and welcome to More Talks. I am WC Moore. This is Jen Psaki's press conference from October the 8th, 2021.
You confirm that the White House is authorizing the National Archives to turn over documents covering all communications related to the Trump's activities on January 6th?
The administration takes the events of January 6th incredibly seriously, as the president said on its 6-month anniversary.
Why would they take those events seriously? It was a protest. Now, it was a protest inside the Capitol. The only death involved was the police murdering Ashley Babbitt. So, I mean, that should be what the issue is, not the fact that people were protesting. And the Declaration of Independence says a tyrannical government. If there's a tyrannical government, then the people should stand up, and this is a tyrannical government.
That day posed an existential crisis and a test of whether our democracy could survive. It was in many respects a unique attack on the
It's not a democracy, it's a democratic republic.
foundations of our democracy. The president's dedicated to ensuring that something like that could never happen again, which is why the administration is cooperating with ongoing investigations, including the January 6th Select Committee, to bring to light what happened.
And the FBI also, before that, the FBI warned this might happen and it was ignored.
As a part of this process, the president has determined that an assertion of executive privilege is not warranted for the first set of documents from the Trump White House that have been provided to us by the National Archives.
This is just opening it for no presidential documents ever to be sealed again because the left are doing it to the right, so the right will do it to the left and vice versa. And yes, it's going to keep on going on like that.
As we've said previously, this will be an ongoing process, and this is just the first set of documents. And we will evaluate questions of privilege on a case-by-case basis.
I almost guarantee that none of Trump's will be under that thing of privilege. All of Trump's will be released.
But the president has also been clear that he believes it to be of the utmost importance for both Congress and the American people to have a complete understanding of the events of that day to prevent them from happening again.
The president had previously said that the American Rescue Plan would add 7 million jobs to the economy. At this point, is the White House still confident in that reaching that 7 million number?
Well, that was, of course, based on outside economists providing their analysis. Nothing has changed on the projections of economists in terms of the American Rescue Plan that we're currently implementing, yes.
Okay. And finally, today the president became the first U.S. president to recognize Indigenous Peoples Day. Why should the U.S. Continue to celebrate Columbus Day? And has there been any talk or discussion of, as many cities and I think a few states have shifted from Columbus Day to an Indigenous Peoples Day?
Why can't they celebrate both? I mean, you got Black History Month, so why not an Indigenous Peoples Day? But also, why not Columbus Day? Columbus was apparently the guy who founded America. I mean, I realized there was the Viking who was over here first, and then there was Mr. America who was over here before Columbus as well. But Columbus is the one recognized, so why not?
Well, today is both Columbus Day, as of now, and this is why you're asking the question, as well as Indigenous Peoples Day. I'm not aware of any discussion of ending that, either of ending the prior federal holiday at this point, but I know that recognizing today as Indigenous Peoples Day is something that the president felt strongly about personally.
If he only recognized it as Indigenous Peoples Day, he did not recognize it as Columbus Day, so yes, he is splitting them. And they should be different days, personally.
Happy to be the first president to celebrate and to make it the history of moving forward. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. I want to ask you about the jobs numbers. One of the things that the jobs numbers showed is that there are more jobs available, a historic number of jobs available compared to how many people are actually seeking jobs.
Yeah.
Why do you think there are so many people who are still reluctant to re-enter the workforce?
There's a range of factors.
What they should do is just get rid of all unemployment benefits. No one should get a penny until these jobs are filled. because this is ridiculous. They are doing this, they're scaring people with COVID, and they're trying to ruin the economy. I don't know why they're trying to ruin the American economy, but that's the way they seem to be going.
In our assessment, one is people are still fearful of COVID and what it will be like in workplaces. And
They wouldn't be fearful of COVID if you and the press didn't push the fear of COVID.
Ensuring their own safety. There are still challenges as it relates to child care, elder care, the costs of those, and being able to afford it, and also
Again, with the inflation that this administration has we've seen with this administration, then okay, I'll give you that. But that's always been there.
the availability, which is something we've seen a shortage of in many communities. And we'd also have seen that the pandemic, while it's been incredibly challenging on many, many levels, it's also prompted many people to rethink what their careers might look like and what careers they may pursue. So,
But they still shouldn't be sat at home thinking. They should work until they decide what they want to do.
you're right, there are an enormous number of jobs that are still available out there in the workforce, and we believe those are the range of factors that are attributed to that.
And then I was wondering if you could give us an update on the negotiations with Senators Manchin and Sinema. Democrats are expressing more and more public frustration with the two of them, arguing that they're not moving off of their positions. Are the two of them providing more concessions in private than they appear to be in public? And is the president getting frustrated?
So, because people are getting frustrated, you should change your values. Is that what you're trying to say? I'm not saying these two are doing it for values. They're probably doing it to get more stuff paid for in their state. That's generally what senators do. But if they're doing it for values, then, oh no, I'm sorry. You should tell the people not to vote for them next time.
Well, we don't have the luxury of being frustrated. This is a process. The president of all people recognizes that the process can take some time. There can be ups and downs in the process, and he feels that we're continuing to make progress, that both Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema are negotiating in good faith, that there is a recognition that not only do some people have to come down from their expectations of what might be in a package, but some others have to come up. That's what compromise is all about. So we're going to continue to pursue these discussions and negotiations. The president is confident we're going to get this done. Go ahead.
Thank you. First, on the economy, there are 500,000 containers floating off the California coast with nowhere to go. Major issues in the global supply chain right now. The vice president warned that this could happen in August. So why wasn't more done to prepare?
For the global supply chain issues?
Yeah, she was talking in August about if you want to have your Christmas toys for your children, now might be the time to start buying them because the delays could be many, many months.
Because this is what the Democrats want. The ports are run by the unions, and the unions bow down to the good Democrats. So this is exactly what they want.
I asked that because we've been talking about the issues in the global supply chain since January. And the president has not only put in place a task force, but we have taken a range of steps to work.
A task force is just more people being paid to do nothing by a government. We don't need a task force. We need actual work being done.
Work to address. Now, it's not just about ensuring that we are having different companies speak to each other. We've certainly done that. We've been a forum for hosting different industry leaders to see what we can reduce in terms of red tape in the process. One of the biggest issues in the global supply chain is also COVID, and the fact that COVID continues to be a threat to supply chains that are happening globally. So we've also worked to be by far and away the largest provider of vaccines, know-how, manufacturing capacity to the world. So we've not only been talking about this since January, we've been working to put in place a range of steps to help address the challenges in the supply chains.
And as we understand it, it's not just COVID. There are also labor shortages and issues with shipping lines here, overground shipping lines in the U.S. Is the president satisfied that his task force is doing a good job?
the president recognizes that there are several layers of the challenge here that contribute to the bottleneck. And on ports and transportation bottlenecks specifically, the president appointed a White House ports envoy this summer, John Porcari, to work with Secretary Buttigieg and bring stakeholders, labor, private industry together to help solve the global transportation supply problems.
What do you mean by stakeholders? You keep on talking about stakeholders when it comes to government. Government shouldn't have stakeholders. There should be no stakeholders in government. Then again, the federal government is way too big anyway. Let's just cut 90% of it, and the country will run a lot better.
The fact that he designated and appointed someone at that level with a range of vast experience shows that this is a part of the issue we're absolutely focused on. We're also focused, as I noted, on the work of the supply chain task force, also the semiconductor shortage, which has been an issue that has impacted a range of industries, and we're working to attack the challenges in the global supply chain at every point they are in the bottleneck.
Thank you. The Democratic candidate for governor in Virginia, Terry McAuliffe, who President Biden stumped for over the summer, now says the president is unpopular today, unfortunately, here in Virginia, so we've got to plow through. Why do you think the president is unpopular in Virginia?
Well, just if you look at facts and the polling.
Exactly. If you look at facts, the president should be unpopular everywhere. Inflation has flown through the roof since he came in. Gas prices probably because of inflation and the fact that he banned oil drilling on federal lands. Gas prices have flown through the roof. He left a load of people in Afghanistan and had 13 soldiers killed. I mean, and then he killed a family of 10. Why do you think he should be popular?
The president is the most popular figure in Virginia of anyone currently running for president or any former recent president. So I just note that in terms of the data. But I would say that the president's...
You're honestly saying that Biden is more popular than Trump in Virginia? That is a sad state of affairs then. I mean, I don't want Trump to run again, but Trump was a popular guy.
Agenda is incredibly popular. That's probably the reason why former Governor McAuliffe is also running on that agenda, whether it is reducing costs for the American people on child care, on elder care, making sure the tax system is more fair, rebuilding our roads, rails, and bridges. Those are all components of the president's agenda that
just tax everybody the same, and then the tax system is fair.
He has a huge agreement with former Governor McAuliffe on.
And then just one more topic following up on his remarks yesterday. President Biden claims that he cold called a Pennsylvania hospital to ask the desk receiving nurse why it was taking so long for a good friend's wife to be seen. What happened next?
Well, the context of why the president told this story, which I think is important, and I promise I'll answer your question, is that he was expressing that hospitals, frontline workers, nurses, doctors in emergency rooms are still seeing and feeling the impact of the number of people who are unvaccinated, who are filling beds and in emergency rooms, ICUs.
Please look at your facts, woman. Most people who have got COVID now at the moment are vaccinated, because it's not a real vaccine. It's what they call a wet vaccine. It makes people get it, but in theory, they won't have symptoms as hard. And if you're vaccinated and I'm not, then how am I giving you the vaccine? It's only me who should be worried, and I'm not.
And it is preventing, in some cases, people who have other illnesses, who may be seeking treatment, who may be fearful of a heart attack, other people who might be going to the emergency room from getting the care that they need. I don't have any other update for the privacy of this individual.
But setting aside the privacy of the individual, how often does President Biden call around trying to help his friends cut the line?
That certainly was not his intention. He was not trying to do that.
Don't you lie. Biden has been known to help his friends and his family out.
Was checking in on a friend.
And do you know if this particular hospital might have been having staffing shortages because they have a vaccine mandate and maybe some folks have had to leave because they don't want to get vaccinated?
I would love for you to account for me where that is the issue over more so than the number of unvaccinated who are filling emergency rooms, filling ICU beds. That is the problem in hospitals across.
Thousands of nurses have quit because they don't want to get vaccinated. You need to go to the real world and have a look.
Across the country. Go ahead.
Jen, what does the president say to America? Inflation is a big issue right now for Americans from coast to coast as we head into the holidays. What does the president say to Americans right now who are worried about those rising costs?
The president would say we take the commitment. He takes the commitment of lowering costs for the American people very seriously. We, of course, have seen and from outside experts, including the Federal Reserve, OECD, and others, that their expectation is that these inflation rises will be transitory, that they will come back down next year, and that one of the best things we can do is pass his agenda. That's what outside economists, 15, 17 Nobel laureates have conveyed in order to reduce the risk of inflation over the long term.
The inflation is because you keep on printing money to pay for these stupid bills that you keep on insisting that they get. America is being destroyed from the inside at the moment.
But he's also attacking this from everywhere he can. If you take, for example, the cost of meat in the grocery store, which we know is of concern to the American people, we believe that the lack of competition is a huge issue here.
The lack of competition is partly because over the last 50 years, the federal government has fought against and put mandates in to make it harder for small farms to do anything. And so now there's no competition. And also, global warming people want to get rid of all meat anyway. So this is another step towards that.
That the conglomeration of big companies in some industries is a huge factor. So he's also taken that on. But we would say to the American people that what we're trying to do is lower your costs, whether it's childcare, whether it's the cost of meat.
Get out of the way then. The best way to lower the cost is to get out of the way and let the free market do it.
Or whether it's ensuring this is not an issue in years to come.
And for clarity, the time frame is still with the Fed said of next year. There isn't any better time frame the White House can give Americans about how long we kind of got to hunker down and get through this.
Americans should know that the Federal Reserve makes independent assessments. That's an important thing for history, and that continues to be their assessment.
Can I ask you then about the reporting earlier today as it relates to the former president's documents as they associate with the January 6th attack on the Capitol right now? Can you help detail for us or characterize what types of documents these are that would be provided?
Well, the documents are Trump-era White House records responsive to the Select Committee's request to the archivist.
What she means is every document that the Trump administration did in their 4 years is going to be open for everybody to see.
And so there is a process where the former president would have a period of time to assert executive privilege, and then the current president and team would have a period of time to review that request. But in terms of the details of them, I point to the Select Committee for more specifics.
Specifically in terms of what the White House is saying you can't exert executive privilege over. Is it phone records, visitor logs? Is there any way, can you run us through that list?
That is something I would point you to the committee on. Go ahead.
Jen, can you explain the standard of review then that the White House is undertaking? What would be something that this White House might consider privileged or should remain secret that this former president or any other former president should have the?
It sounds like the press don't actually believe that the Biden administration is going to be honest about this or going to be transparent about it, and the fact that they think that everything Trump did is going to be revealed.
Privilege applied, to which the privilege should apply.
Are you talking about as it relates to January 6th or just in general?
Just, well, specifically in this review, if there's any information you could share about the process that has been undertaken and more broadly.
Well, the process that is one that has been outlined through history and law, is that the former president has the ability, not that there's a lot of past precedent here, I will acknowledge, has the opportunity to exert executive privilege. Then to documents that are in the National Archives. And then this president and this White House has the opportunity to review that. Now, I think it's important to note, and I know I said this, but I will just reiterate, this is the first set of documents. So these will be reviewed on a case-by-case basis. And obviously, we will be responsive to the requests of the committee. I would like to note, just broadly speaking, that, what this committee is investigating is not the normal course of government business, right? There is, as you know, and as all of you know, there are normal requests for documents, for information. There are moments throughout history where presidents and White Houses have asserted executive privilege. We will continue to evaluate those on a case-by-case basis. But this committee is investigating a dark day in our democracy, an attempt to undermine our Constitution and democratic processes by the former president. And that context, I think, is important here, too.
Okay.
So she is saying that not many presidents have exerted executive privilege. Kennedy did, Johnson did, Nixon did, Ford did, Carter did, Reagan did, George H.W. Bush did, Clinton did, George W. Bush did. So, I mean, yeah, not many at all.
Put a finer point on a question Amr asked you about.
Sure.
Obama also did, so again, not many.
Indigenous Peoples Day. The president today issued 2 proclamations.
Yes.
One for Indigenous Peoples Day, the
Yep.
other for Columbus Day. In the Indigenous Peoples Day proclamation, the president spoke of it as a day to be celebrated. And in the Columbus Day proclamation, the president spoke of the need for reflection on that day. And he also seemed to indicate that Congress has requested that the president proclaim Columbus Day. So my question is President Biden begrudgingly proclaiming Columbus Day this year?
He's declaring both a holiday. Obviously, Indigenous Peoples Day is something that he's honored to be the first president to be issuing a proclamation on and celebrating.
What she means is yes, he is begrudgingly commemorating Columbus Day.
Is it his wish that the federal law be changed, that Columbus Day no longer be the designation of the second Monday in October?
I don't have any prediction of that at this point in time. Go ahead.
What she's saying is we'd like it to be, but it probably won't happen.
Going back to the documents that the January 6th committee requested, can you clarify? We've seen public statements from former President Trump and his lawyers about an intention to invoke executive privilege, but did they specifically reach out and ask that certain documents not be shared?
There's an entire process that transpires. I would point you to them and to the National Archives. Go ahead.
Can I ask a follow-up
Yeah.
on the economy really fast? You talked about labor shortages. You talked about supply chain issues. How long does the White House expect those issues to go on?
Global supply chain issues?
What's your best guess for how long we'll have to be dealing with that?
Well, look, I think as I noted earlier in response to Peter's question, there are a couple of issues at play here.
I thought his question about the length of inflation.
He also asked me about the global supply chain. Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. Yes. Oh, also about he asked me about the global supply chain issues. Okay. Sorry. So that is true. 2 Peters over here. So one of the issues is, of course, how quickly we can work as a global community to address COVID and get it under control around the world. The United States is far and away the largest provider of vaccines, donating millions to billions to the global community to get the pandemic under control. We have also taken significant steps far and away, more than any other country, on manufacturing know-how, on ensuring that we are providing the supplies that are needed to countries. We continue to need other countries around the world to step up to help address, because the global supply chain issues are in some part related to manufacturing in other countries.
Why don't we just manufacture it in America and we don't have to worry about the rest of the world?
There are some issues we've seen, some progress on addressing, but we also need to get the CHIPS funding passed and through Congress. That's something the president strongly supports. A semiconductor chip shortage is a huge issue, as you all know, in the auto industry and manufacturing here in the United States and around the world. So I would say there's not a one-sentence answer on this, because I know you weren't asking for one, but because there are a range of issues, the point is, we're working to address them on several paths and on several fronts. And I can't make a prediction of when it will be concluded. It is just a top priority of the president. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jan. Just a quick follow-up on inflation. So we're looking at Labor Department data. It shows that there is like a 0.9% decline in how much Americans have earned per hour on average this August versus last year. So year-over-year data when you adjust it for inflation. And so inflation is clearly eating into people's paychecks. And, I understand that you're saying that, and you have said this in the past, that impact from inflation is transitory, that the president will, when asked how he plans to address this. We'll talk about competition issues. We'll talk about meat prices. But are there any sort of near-term steps that the White House is now thinking of taking as you look at this data that is starting to flow in? And is the president starting to get increasingly concerned, perhaps, that this is now starting to actually eat into people's paychecks?
Well, as you picked that wages piece of data, though, I think what's important to note is that the progress that the president talked about this morning is on a range of fronts, which is also important. We're at a faster projection of economic growth than we were at a year ago, far and away.
That's because a year ago everything was locked down. How can you be growing the economy when the economy is closed down?
The 4.8% unemployment rate is down from 6.3% in January. Unemployment claims are down 60% since the president took office.
That's because the economy is slowly opened again, and some people have gone back to work. But if you shut down the unemployment payments, more people would go to work.
Seen close to 5 million jobs created since President Biden took office, and wages actually went up month to month from last month.
Wages are going up because no one's taking the jobs. So people have to pay more to entice people.
To the prior month. So that's all important data. I understand we can cherry pick different data pieces from a year ago or 2 years ago, but what we're seeing in the trend is encouraging and is progress being made. As you well know, inflation is the purview of the Federal Reserve. They make projections. We rely on those projections. Those continue to say that it's transitory and will come down next year. It is also important that we address this over the long term and we address the costs. That is really what we're talking about in terms of the impact on the American people. People may not know, you hear inflation, it's like, what does that mean? That means rising costs, right? And how do you address those costs?
Well, first of all, you start allowing drilling again.
And what the president's trying to do with his economic agenda is do exactly that. Cut the cost for the American people. Child care, elder care, cut in half the child poverty.
Again, get the hell out of people's way and we'll do it. That is how America should be. The government needs to be about 90% less than it is.
Make sure that people have some breathing room. That's really what he's focused on doing in terms of how it's impacting people who are sitting at home worried about their economic future.
Are there specific, perhaps, commodities? You spoke about chips. We've been talking about chips for a long time. Are there specific commodities or specific bottlenecks in the global supply chain that are perhaps emerging more than ever now, in the run-up to the holidays that the White House is particularly focused on?
Well, I've talked about a couple of the areas where we are quite focused on doing more and ensuring we're doing more, including addressing ports and transportation bottlenecks, which, as we know, can impact a lot of different areas because it is how goods are moved and transported, and ensuring there aren't the delays that I think you all have reported on in a range of ways. And John Porcari is somebody who has a great deal of experience, having worked for the Department of Transportation in the past, and is working to address those global transportation issues. I noted, of course, the semiconductor shortage, which, as you know, impacts a number of industries here. And we have made some progress in our view, including improving communications and trust across the supply chain, improvements in the supply chain practices, which may seem overly simplistic or just cutting through bureaucratic red tape, but it can help the process and move things forward. I also noted food processing. This is an area also where we have seen impacts in some communities from food processing and issues in the global supply chain. And so we know that the pandemic has revealed vulnerabilities in our food system. That's one of the reasons the Department of Agriculture announced the new food supply chain loan guarantee program. And we've also seen, as it relates to lumber, which was an area that we
these loan guarantees that the government do, just like student loan guarantees, raise its prices because people know that they'll get the money back from the government. So prices are going to go up. Well done for raising more prices.
Talked about quite a bit several months ago, and we saw the impact on how that impacted housing prices of new homes specifically. Since its peak, the cost of lumber has decreased by 60%, and is one example of the market leveling off. So point is, there are different, as you know, there are different issues as it relates to the supply chain in different industries. We're working to address them and attack them all at the same time. We have seen some elements of progress, but we also continue to understand and know that as we're coming back from a global pandemic, a massive undertaking, and the economy's turning back on, we're going to have to keep pressing to make sure we're addressing these issues, and we're doing that around the clock at agencies across the federal government.
Thank you. And then just one quick question. Gas prices. Reuters has some reporting that shows a lot of American consumers we're talking to have started to link the rise in gas prices to the administration's policies that ban fossil fuels. For example, a pause on federal leasing on land and water. And so my question is, why keep a lid on production at home with American companies and instead ask OPEC for more production where that production is perhaps not as environmentally regulated? Is there any consideration perhaps being given to this, keeping in mind rising gas prices?
Not just that, but that's hypocritical. We have to be good to the environment, so we can't allow drilling, so we'll ask other countries to drill more. We're still getting the same stuff, so we may as well do it ourselves. And her answer will be, no thought has been given to this because we don't like it.
Well, we are in touch. We are not a member of OPEC, as you all know. We are in regular touch with OPEC, and we have also raised issues of supply in meetings that members of our national security team and others have had in recent weeks, as I have confirmed from here. We, of course, want to address the short-term supply issues. One of those issues, as we know, was related to Hurricane Ida and the impacts in the region, which we took steps to address certainly at the time. But our view, to go back to your original question, is also that, well, we need to take steps to address short-term supply issues. We need to also keep our eye on the long term and the impact of the climate, the crisis that we are in the middle of, and ensure that we are continuing to encourage the production and rise of renewables and the clean energy industry, which is
America was energy independent. And then Biden decided to stop drilling. And you want safe and you want clean energy, go nuclear. Nuclear is the cleanest energy there is.
exactly what the president's proposals would do. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. As the January 6th committee looks to enforce some of the subpoenas that it has been issuing for witnesses, will the president direct the Justice Department to prosecute criminal referrals from the Select Committee?
That would be up to the Department of Justice, and it would be their purview to determine. They're an independent agency.
Has the president discussed that at all with the Attorney General? Or
They're independent. They would determine any decision on criminal prosecutions. I point you to them and, of course, the committee.
And then just going kind of big picture here, today we saw another jobs report that fell well below expectations, the smallest jobs gains in nearly a year. Gas prices are at a 7-year high. Inflation is up. The president is struggling to get the rest of his Build Back Better agenda passed through Congress.
Who was in charge 7 years? Oh, that's right. That was Obama and Biden. So the gas prices went down when Trump came in, and now Biden's back in. It's gone straight back up. Now, there seems to be a common element here. Oh, that's Biden. Yes.
How do you assess where things stand right now with regards to his presidency? And do you see a need at this point to course correct, perhaps?
We certainly don't see things as darkly as you do. Look, the president's focus.
That's because you've got rose-tinted glasses on. You should look at the real world.
Focus is on leading through a challenging time, and that has been his focus from the first day he took office. If you look at the data month over month, as I noted a few minutes ago, he has also created 5 million jobs under his presidency. We've created an average of 500,000 jobs a month. We are at a faster rate of economic growth, a lower rate of unemployment than in quite some time. That's progress. That's moving exactly in the right direction. And as it relates to the president's agenda, we're continuing to press forward with members of Congress who have a broad range of views about the path forward. But we're making progress. The president remains confident we're going to get it done. And this is what governing looks like.
Do you not see today's jobs report as a warning sign in any way that perhaps the economy is not headed in the right direction, that perhaps the recovery is not going at the pace that it should be?
Maybe it's the right direction that they want to go.
I don't believe that's what economists are projecting at this point in time.